Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. And happy Thanksgiving weekend to all my fellow Canadians out there. Hope your weekend is fun. Safe weekend, given everything going on in the world right now. But for this video, I'm going to be making soup. Of course, it's coming into fall, so it's coming into what we like to call soup season. So I'm going to try to make a few more videos down the line from maybe some different ones. But for today, since it is Thanksgiving weekend, I'm going to be making butternut squash soup. Now, I already have a couple things already set up, but before I get into the actual soup, I wanted to show you guys how to properly, peel and cut butternut squash here. So we'll jump into that in a second, and then I'll keep going down and show you how to actually make it into the soup. Okay everyone, so it was real simple to do this, and actually much like my last video where I showed you guys kind of how to peel and cut the fruit, it's almost going to be almost the exact same way to do this. So you can see how the butternut squash is fairly long. It has kind of this bigger round section at the bottom and then it tapers off at the top. So what you want to first go ahead and do is on the top and bottom where the stems are, you want to just cut those off. Don't take too much off, just cut the very top off and cut off that very bottom stem part because it's not really great for eating. And then again, you're going to look something like this. You can kind of expose the flesh. And then you just want to take your knife and almost just where the kind of skinny tapered part at the top meets the bottom, you want to then go ahead and cut it in half. Now, I'm going to start with the bottom here for a second. And again, much like the last video, like I said, with peeling the melon, you just want to follow the method. You can see there at the top how you've kind of exposed a nice orange flesh of the squash. So what you want to just do is get your knife along the side and gently peel off that skin. Kind of follow around the lines of the squash there. You can see I didn't get everything off the bottom. But again, just like with the fruit video, you just want to get your knife peeled down, kind of follow along the edges of the squash. It's going to basically tell you where it wants to be cut. And then you're going to do the same thing with the top piece as well. The top is a little bit easier because it's a little bit thinner. So you can almost just get your knife in there and cut it straight down. Again, remember not to cut too far in. We just want to take off the skin. We don't want to take off any of the actual good vegetable, any of the good fleshy part. So yeah, it's just that simple. I'm going to go ahead and finish off this, and then we'll move on to the next steps. And we're back. Everything's nice and peeled. And to go with the next step, we're going to start again with the bottom half, and that is taking the seeds out of the middle. Now, again, like I mentioned in the previous video, kind of just like the melon, it has seeds in the middle of the bottom half here. So just go ahead, get your knife, cut it down the middle, and you can see there all the seeds. Just grab a spoon, get in there. Don't have to be super gentle. Just get in there. Make sure you scoop all the seeds out of both sides. You just want to go in there. You want to scrape out every bit of seed and kind of that little stringy pulp in the middle. Make sure it's all nice and cleaned out. Just get rid of it. Right. So you just want to go ahead and do that for both sides so it looks all nice and clean like this. And then we can go ahead and start to cut it. So now that the bottom's cut in half and everything's cleaned out, you can see there, no seeds or anything left, we can go ahead and cut it. Now, because for this application, I'm going to be cutting it up and making soup out of it, I don't have to be super careful about cutting nice even sizes for even cooking or for a nice presentation. So we can just go ahead and basically just kind of rough cut it up. Now, you want to maybe keep it a little bit more even when you cut it, just so they kind of cook all the same way. But again, just kind of, cut it up. Just cut nice chunks out of it. Again, we don't have to be super careful because we are gonna eventually cook it down and blend it in a soup. So just go ahead. Right, you can see there, I just chopped it up real rough. Again, just take your other half, kind of make nice little chunks out of it. And you're good to go. I'm going to do the same thing with the top piece here. And then I'm going to put it in my bowl for seasoning. Now, already in my bowl, I already cut up a little bit of carrot and some red onion. That's just going to help give the soup a bit more depth of flavor. Just go ahead, get all your chunks in the bowl with everything else. Bowl there you can see. All right. And then same with our top half here. I'm just going to stand it up, split it straight down the middle. And again, guys, because this is going for soup, we're just going to cut it roughly. So, you know, I'm just going to cut the top into about 4 pieces here, and then just kind of randomly cut smaller chunks, and we're good to go. Guys, all of our squash chunks are in there. And again, you can see I just cut them real rough. You know, some sides are bigger than the other, but again, we're just gonna roast these off to get it blended into soup. So once we have all this now, we're gonna hit it with our seasoning, and it's real simple. All we're gonna do is just some olive oil. Make sure it gets nice and coated. Some olive oil, and then for some of my spices, I'm gonna go with some ground cloves here. A little shake. Some nutmeg. Again, you can use the pre-ground stuff, or if you have fresh nutmeg, you can grind it yourselves. A little bit of cinnamon. Not too much, just, you know, maybe 1 or 2 little shakes. And then just some good old salt and pepper. And then again, don't be shy. Once all your stuff is in there, just get in with your hands. Give it a nice toss around so that everything gets nice and covered. That's in your bowl here. And give it a quick toss. And then once everything's nice and covered, I'm going to grab my tray over here. I just have a baking sheet pre-lined with some parchment paper. Let's dump everything out on the tray. Make sure it's all evenly spread. If it starts to clump up too much on the tray, guys, just spread out into 2, because again, we want everything to kind of roast evenly and nicely. This all fits on my one tray perfectly fine. And then at this point, I'm just gonna pop it in my oven. My oven's preheated to 350 degrees, and you just want to let it roast. Now, everybody's oven is going to be a little bit different. I've mentioned that in previous videos. So, you know, my time might be slightly different than yours. But generally, you want to wait until the squash pieces here have kind of a nice kind of golden brown roasted color on them. So for my oven, that's probably going to take about 40 minutes. You know, I'm going to check it, obviously, semi-periodically. But you know, I would say 40 minutes is kind of, 40 to 45 minutes is kind of the benchmark. But again, like I said, everyone's oven is going to be a little bit different, so yours might take a little bit less time. Yours might take a little bit longer, but I would say about 40 minutes is kind of the timing that you want to be at. And before I forget, guys, as well, you want to just throw a couple cloves of garlic on your tray as well. So just quickly, before this starts to cook too much, all I'm going to do is just kind of gently crush these, just so I can peel the skins off of them. And then once the skins are peeled, I don't know what you guys can see in the camera, but once they're peeled, I'm just going to just kind of rough cut them in some smaller chunks. So you can see there, again, nothing super fancy, just cut them into a couple small chunks. I'm going to go ahead and just throw these onto my tray, but I recommend you guys cut these up and throw them onto your tray just before you stick them in the oven. So it's about 45 minutes later, and you can see here, everything's out of the oven now, and it didn't get as much color as I thought it was going to. You can see, you know, on a few of the edges there, it's kind of a little bit more golden brown. But most importantly, you can see here, if I kind of just gently press on some of the squash pieces, that they're kind of soft and they squish in, and that's exactly what we want. Even the carrots as well. So once they're like this, I'm going to let them cool off for a moment before I get them into my pot. And then we'll go ahead and I'll show you guys how to actually turn all of this into a nice soup. Alright guys, so it's been a couple of minutes just to let everything kind of settle, cool off ever so slightly. And then now all we got to do is just scrape everything off of our tray here into our pot. Make sure you get everybody out. Oop, lost one piece there. And make sure you want to scrape even down the paper, because you know there might be some extra, some stuck on bits or some extra juices that came out of the veg there. You want to make sure you get all the flavor, everything into the pot. Let's go ahead and put our tray aside. Grab the straggler that fell out. And then for our liquid, I have a little bit of veggie stock here that I made a while ago. Now, you don't have to use veggie stock. You can use just plain old water as well, which we are going to add in a minute here also. But I have some veggie stock here. Again, As I mentioned in my last chicken stock video, you know, using the stock just adds a kind of more depth of flavor into it than just using plain water would be. You can also use chicken stock as well if you like. I like to use veggie stock given the fact that butternut squash soup is supposed to be a vegetable soup, so that way, you know, it's safe if you have any friends who are vegetarian or you just don't want something kind of like that heavy, kind of meaty taste. I would go ahead and use just some veggie stock or, again, just some water. So I don't know what you guys can see on camera, but you can see right at the bottom of my my liter jar here, there's some sediment. That's going to happen when you make stock, guys. It's just, you know, once everything starts to settle, all like the heavy sediment, it's just, you know, usually some ground up veg, maybe some pepper that didn't quite get, you know, minced up. It's all going to set to the bottom, so we don't really want that in our soup because then it's not going to make it as smooth. So I just have a little mesh strainer here. We're just going to strain our stock through that to catch any of those bits from coming out, like so. If you need to, just use a spoon just to make sure everything gets filtered through like this. And once that's good, just put it off to the side. And then, as I mentioned, I am going to just put some water in here as well. And the key to this is that you don't want to overfill it with water. You want to put in enough water just to cover up all the veg. This has about 4 cups. It's probably going to be about, I don't know, 6 cups of water in addition with the stock. And again, I'm going to just finish filling out the pot here, but yeah, you want enough water just to kind of cover up the veg. In a second, I'll put the camera closer so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So just give me a second to fill this up, and I'll be right back with you. All right, so now the camera's a bit closer, guys. You can see I'm putting in just enough water. You can see there, just enough that it covers up all of my veg in the pot. If I kind of stir it down, right, it's just enough to cover it, and that's what you want. You don't want to put too much water in there, because you don't want to overfill your pot and maybe have it boil out and over. And also, too, you don't want too much liquid. This is going to be eventually a blended soup, so you want it to hold a bit more thickness. And, you know, you can always, when it's cooking down, if you see that the water is maybe getting a bit too low, or the liquid level is getting a bit too low, you can always add some extra water in. You can never really take it out, except for having to cook it, and then you risk overcooking it, maybe. So, yeah, always you want to start with this. You want to cover it so it's just covering all your vegetables. And then all that's really left to do now is go ahead, turn it back on, get it onto a high heat so that it can come to a boil. And then you just want to let it cook down and cook down. Okay, so after about 35 minutes of cooking, once again, I brought it to a boil and then turned it down on low heat, let it simmer for about 35 minutes. And you can see now what I said before about not putting too much water in. It's gone down a little bit. Everything in there is kind of gone down as it's cooked, and the water is just still barely covering it. So now when I go ahead and blitz it, I don't get a super liquidy soup. And if I still find, or you guys find when you make this, that there's still a bit too much liquid, once you've blitzed it up and see where the thickness is at, you can always either put it back on the stove to let it cook down a bit more, or if you need to add a little bit more liquid to make it a little bit thinner, it's up to you. I like my soups to be a little bit thicker, so I'll see. I think I might be good here. But in a second here, I'm going to show you how I do this with the hand blender and kind of the smoothest you guys want. Now, if you guys don't have a little stick blender like this, you can do it inside of a food processor or something like that if you have it at home. Just make sure you do it in a couple batches, not too much at a time, and you're good to go. But for my sake, I happen to have the stick blender here, so in a second here, I'll just show you real quickly how to blitz it up, and then that should pretty much end off the video. So once again, stick blender in, and you see I'm just using kind of the little blade option on there, so it kind of cuts through everything. And then I have 2 speed settings, 1 and 2. I'm going to put it on high speed to start. And you just want to kind of stir it around, make sure you kind of get all the chunks. But you're going to hear them start to kind of get blended up in the blade there. And you're going to start to see your liquid start to thicken up, that with everything getting blitzed up. So just kind of gently go around the pot, making sure you get everything, blitzed up here. And you can see how now that I've blended it, it's starting to get a little bit thicker. So again, it's personal preference. Like I just said, I like my soup to be a little bit thicker. But obviously go ahead and check it for yourself. And also at this point, you want to go ahead and taste test it, which I'll do in a moment, because if you need to add any more seasoning, salt, pepper, spice, whatever, this is the point where you want to do it when you're blending everything in. But I would also say wait a second and make sure you blend everything first, because all the flavor is going to come together before you go ahead adding more. Alright, so after, I don't know, what was that, about a minute or so of blending, just give it a stir around. If you have another spoon, get a spoon, make sure you have all the chunks out. And as I just said, at this point, this is also when you want to do a little taste test, make sure your flavoring's good. Yeah, so I think I'm going to go back in, maybe just add a little bit more salt, pepper, some other things. But that's pretty much how you're going to do it. Now, one other thing of note, one other pro tip that I didn't mention, if you guys are going to be doing this with a food processor or a blender, you want to have some way for the heat to escape. So the best way to do that would be let your soup cool off, so it's not, piping hot right out of the pot, or maybe on a food processor, leave the little center plug out, or kind of have some kind of vent, because otherwise, if you put that much heat trapped up in a little area, you're going to potentially blow the lid off, and then you're going to have soup all over, hot soup in your face, which is never fun. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But as I said, there you go, guys. That's pretty much the finished product. I am going to just hit it with a bit more seasoning just to get it to the flavor that I'm looking for. And another thing you can do, if you want to make it just maybe a little bit richer or just enhance it a little bit more, you can also fold in some cream. Now you can either do this right now before you serve it, or you can just have some on the table, and then if people want to add it in themselves, they can do that as well. And that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel. I am going to be making probably some more soup videos later on. If you guys have any requests for something you want to learn how to make, or you just want kind of my take on it, leave me a comment down below and I'll get to it as soon as I can. But yeah, if you guys also make this, maybe let me know. I'm not sure, either down in the description below or maybe on my Facebook page or something, I will put up the recipe if you guys want to do it exactly like I just did. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, as I said, that's going to do it for this one. Again, like, subscribe, share the video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.